boys and girls, it's your reading teachers.
Welcome to the wonderful world of poetry.
We have a really fun poem that we'd like you to listen to and enjoy.
Our teacher's not a zombie, he's not the living dead, although he's looking ragged and his eyes are rather red. He shuffles to the classroom, he slowly drags his feet. He shambles to the whiteboard, looking broken down and beat. We listen to his plaintive moans, we see the way he strains. We hear him mumble mournfully about the students' brains. But we know not to worry, we never get upset. He's always like this when he hasn't had his coffee yet.
So, boys and girls, when you listen to Miss Kemp, Miss Hodges, and I read this poem to you, could you feel a rhythm or a beat going on? When you write poetry and when you read poetry, try to read it and write it creating a beat because it really makes it fun. Listen to the poem again and pay attention to the rhythm and the beat of it.
Our teacher's not a zombie, he's not the living dead, although he's looking ragged and his eyes are rather red. He shuffles to the classroom, he slowly drags his feet. He shambles to the whiteboard, looking broken down and beat. We listen to his plaintive moans, we see the way he strains. We hear him mumble mournfully about the students' brains. But we know not to worry, we never get upset. He's always like this when he hasn't had his coffee yet.
Boys and girls, you'll notice when you look at a poem, the text is different than when you're reading a book. You'll notice that a poem has lines instead of sentences. Sometimes a line can be a complete sentence, but sometimes it's not. Let's look at the first line. Our teacher's not a zombie. That's line 1. It is a complete sentence. Look at line 2. He's not the living dead. That's not a complete sentence. There's a comma at the end. Although he's looking ragged, again, it's not a complete sentence. And his eyes are rather red. Line 4 is not a complete sentence either, but if you put lines 2, 3, and 4 together, you do have a complete sentence. Boys and girls, it's really important that you number the lines of your poem. Sometimes when you have a question about a poem, the writer of the test might say, look in line number 4, so you know exactly where to look to find the answer. Also, sometimes poems will have a number out to the side instead of each line being numbered. So you might see number 4 out to the side. Down here you might see number 8 out to the side. That just helps you to know which line you're on in the poem.
Stanzas also occur in poetry. A group of lines altogether makes up a stanza. They look similar to paragraphs that we see in our regular text, but in poetry, these groups of lines are called a stanza. You know when one stanza ends and another stanza begins because of the white space in between the stanzas. So these first 4 lines make up one stanza in the poem. The next 4 lines make up the second stanza, and so on throughout the poem.
When we take a poem apart and we try to see how the poet wrote it, we need to break it down line by line. And when we do that, if we look at the words that are at the end of each line, we ask ourselves, do they rhyme or not? And based on whether or not they rhyme, we can come up with a rhyme scheme. If you look at this poem and we look at the last words, zombie, dead, ragged, red, you'll notice that zombie, dead, and ragged don't rhyme at all. So we give them each their own letter. But you'll notice in the 4th line that red rhymes with dead, so it gets the same letter. A, B, C, B is the rhyme scheme. If you go down to each of the next 3 stanzas, you'll notice the same type of rhyme scheme. Classroom, feet, whiteboard, they don't rhyme. But beat rhymes with feet, so he gets the same letter. D, E, F, go back to E again. And the same thing for the following 2 stanzas. Moans, strains, mournfully, they don't rhyme. But brains rhymes with strains, so he gets the same letter. And when we look at the very last stanza, worry, upset, he, they don't rhyme. But look at yet. Yet rhymes with upset, so he gets the same letter. And boys and girls, that's how most poems are laid out. This is called the rhyme scheme.
The mood is created by everything that the author does with the text. This is in poetry as well as everything we read. The author uses all of their devices to create a feeling or an emotion that goes with their writing. In this particular poem, when I first glanced at it, I thought it was going to be a creepy, scary poem because I noticed this zombie-looking guy and I saw that zombie was in the first line. However, after I read the complete poem, I noticed that really it was a silly, humorous type of poem that the author had created for me to enjoy. As you're reading your poetry, pay attention to the way the author organizes the poem. Notice the lines and the stanzas that the poet is using.
And when you start writing your own poetry, make sure you pay attention to all those things as well. The lines, the stanzas, the rhythm, the rhyme scheme, and the mood of the poem.
We really hope you enjoy this poetry unit.
In conclusion, remember when you're reading poems, as you're reading poetry,